There is a debate, a well-known debate between Rashi and Ibn Ezra, what the word Nazir means. Rashi says Nazir means to separate. The Nazir separates himself from wine. The Ibn Ezra says, wait a second. He quotes those that say, it says about the Nazir, Nazir Elikov al Roisha, he has the crown of God on his head. Nazir means a crown. And in this week's parasha, it says the Nazir has some type of crown. Well, if it says about the Nazir, he has a Nazir, then it's almost certainly, it can't be any clearer that's why he's called a Nazir. Because he has a crown on his head. Nazir from the word Nazir. Not like Rashi who says Nazir means to separate yourself from wine. Rather, Nazir means he has a crown. Because the word Nazir means crown, and it says in this week's parasha about the Nazir that Nazir lekov al roshay. He has the crown of Hashem on his head. The Ibn Ezra says, what crown does he have? He has lots of hair. Is lots of hair considered a crown? Perhaps. Is that the crown that Torah is referring to? His long hair? Says Ibn Ezra, no. He says, many people in the world are slaves to their taivas and their desires. But then occasionally you have someone who rules over himself or herself.
The Rebbe said that Rashi is pshutai and other mepharshim go to Achma.
No, the Ibn Ezra is for sure pshutai. Ibn Ezra is for sure pshutai. More pshutai than Rashi. Ibn Ezra is more pshat than Rashi. Rashi is pshat, which is close to Medrash.
We spoke about this one.
We had all shit about Ibn Ezra last year. Anyhow. So the Ibn Ezra says that a Nazir is somebody who's able to lift themselves above their taivas. And they're able to control their hearts. Instead of their hearts controlling them, they control their feelings. They control their desires. They're the true king. The king over themselves. And that's the crown that the Torah refers to. And that's in fact the word Nazir. The word Nazir is from the word Nazir. The crown that the Torah attests that the Nazir has. And the crown it's a metaphorical crown. The fact that he rules over his heart. You know, we know there's an idea that Rishoyim are b'shus libam, a wicked person is almost controlled by their heart. Whereas by a tzaddik, their heart's in their control. Which has many layers of meaning. The Alter Rebbe and Tanya, there's a whole deeper meaning. The Chassidus says that a tzaddik only feels what they want to feel, etc. But on the surface, it means a tzaddik dominates their heart. And that's the life of a Nazir. That's the decision that a Nazir makes. And that's why he has a crown. He's a king over himself. Fine. So l'chayr, you learn that Ibn Ezra, it's a beautiful thing to be a Nazir, to be a king over yourself. This is what we all strive to accomplish. Yet, if somebody looks at this week's parsha, which we have twice, and the Mitzvah Hashem, we'll hear it again on Shabbos, there's something very strange about the Nazir, and that is, when the Nazir finishes his Nazirus, however long the vow was, he or she must bring certain karbonos. 3 animals. One is an oila, which is always a beautiful offering. It's complete on the Mizbeach. It goes all the way up to God, except for the skin. Then they bring a chatos, a sin offering. Very strange. Why would a Nazir bring a sin offering after they finish their Nazirus? And they also bring a shlomim, a peace offering. That's clear in the Chumash. What's also clear in the Chumash is that Torah speaks about a case that while someone's a Nazir, they're not supposed to become tamei to dead bodies, not supposed to drink wine, not supposed to cut their hair. What if they accidentally became tamei in middle of their Nazirus? So the Torah gives a whole program that they must undertake to purify themselves from the corpse contamination. And in addition, there's karbonos they have to bring. This is mid-Nazirus. During someone's Nazirus, if they accidentally become impure to a dead body, they must bring sacrifices and then start the Nazirus again. So these sacrifices are not identical to the ones that we just mentioned, which are brought at the end of the Nazirus. These ones are different. The ones that are brought mid-Nazirus are 2 birds and 1 animal. 1 bird is an oila, 1 bird is a chatos, a sin offering, and the animal, the lamb, is brought as a osham, a guilt offering. So there's actually different karbonos. There's two sets of karbonos the Torah speaks about. One is if mid Naziris, the Nazir accidentally becomes Tomei, brings two birds, one is an oila, one is a chatas. The animal is a asham, a guilt offering. When the Naziris finishes, then you bring three animals. One is an oila, one is a chatas, one is a shlomim. That's what it says in the Holy Bible. Now in number one is a pasuk that speaks about which sacrifices? The mid-Naziris ones. The one about the Nazir that accidentally became Tameh. And it says, V'chiper Allah, the Kohen should wear number one. Ma'asher chata al hanofesh. Why is there a bird as a chatas? What did the guy do wrong? Because the Nazir chata al hanefesh, he sinned on a soul. He sinned on a soul. Those are actually doubles, two of the same. I don't know, I made 15 of each, so I'm not sure how that happened. It probably means somebody else has two of the others. Oh, there you go. There we go. Right over there. Right, that's it. That's it. We found it. Okay, he owned up. Okay, so what does it mean? The pasuk says that the Nazir sinned on a soul. So right away we go to number two is Rashi, number two on the left. Ma'asher chota ala nefesh, because this Nazir sinned on a soul. Says Rashi, Shaloi nizir metumas hameis. We're talking about the mid-Naziris sacrifices. We're talking about the Nazir that wasn't careful and accidentally, was in contact with a dead body. That's the sin. Says Rashi, Rabbi Lazar HaKapar Eimer. Rabbi Lazar HaKapar was a Tana, and this is quoted many times in Shas. You know what the sin of the Nazir is? Shetzir atzmoi min hayayin. He pained or she pained himself from wine. The Eibishter made a beautiful world and he wants us to enjoy it. And when someone takes a vow to abstain unnecessarily, it's a sin. It's unnecessary infliction on the soul. That's what Rabbi Lazar HaKapar says. The two opinions that Rashi quotes. What?
His nefesh.
Exactly, yes, yeah. The difference is, according to the first pshat, it means he sinned on the soul of the deceased, that he wasn't careful. He came too close. The second pshat, he sinned on his own soul. Now, there's a problem with each pshat. According to the first pshat, why is this Nazir bringing a bird, a sin offering? Because he sinned in the fact he became tameh to a dead body. So the question then is, why when every Nazir finishes their Naziris, do they bring a chatas? Why do they do that? And according to Rabbi Lazar HaKapar, I get why every Nazir is a sinner, but then why does the Torah say this has nothing to do particularly with the Nazir that accidentally became Tomei? Right. He brings a chatas, but every Nazir brings a chatas at the end. Why was this idea that he sinned on his soul only mentioned by this story over here? So this is the beginning of our discussion. So we go to number three. Number three is a famous comment of the Ramban. A short, sweet, powerful comment of the Ramban in this week's parasha. The Ramban deals with our first shaila, that the simple pshat of why the Nazir, who became Tomei mid-Naziris, brings the chatas at that time is the first pshat of Rashi, because they weren't careful with the dead body. But then the question is, so why does every Nazir bring a chatas when they finish? So the Ramban says, in number three, v'tam ha-chatas, the reason for the regular chatas, sheyakriv ha-Nazir, the Nazir brings, b'yoyim malois yemei nizra, when he finishes, loinis parish, it's not clear in the Chumash. It doesn't say. The Chumash only speaks about the chatas mid-Naziris. It doesn't speak about the regular chatas brought at the end. So says Ramban, he says, like a chsidische fabrengen. Says Ramban, imagine, you have a guy, a regular Naziris is 30 days, unless you give it time. For 30 days you live as a tzaddik. 30 days you're a righteous man. No tumah, or no corpse tumah. You're not looking after your hair and your good looks. You're not drinking wine. And then what happens after 30 days? You do the ritual then, you bring your kabbanis, you go back home, and that's it. And you're back down enjoying this world again. What was the point of the hachlata? You know why you bring a chatas? Because you stop being a Nazir. A regular Nazir, when he finishes, he brings a chatas. Not to Not to atone on the fact that he was a Nazir until that point, to atone on the fact that he's no longer going to be a Nazir. That he or she is ready to go back home and say, I've been waiting to drink this for a month. Boy, am I happy to be back. So what was the whole accomplishment of the 30 days of holiness? And we'll read it inside. Val derech hapshat, you know what the simple meaning is? Ki ha'ish hazeh, this person, choyte nafshay. He sins his soul b'malei sanirs, when Naziris is finished. Ki hu ato nazir miktushasa, he retreats from his holiness. V'avodas Hashem. Now he's had enough, what was the whole point of the month of holiness if afterwards you've been eyeing that bottle of wine for the last month and now you can finally enjoy it?
Back with a vengeance.
Yeah, exactly. After 30 days or so of holiness, you should have remained holy. You should have remained. Like it says. A pasuk in Amos, Hashem says, I raise from your children as prophets and from your bachurechem lenazirim. You see what that means? A Nazir is like a prophet. Hishva oiseh akasev lenavi. The Torah compares a Nazir to a prophet. Ukedichsiv, and it says in this week's parsha, Kol Yemei Nizir, all the days of his Naziris, he's holy to God. And if he needs atonement, b'shuvay lehitame b'tayvus ha'olam, because now he's ready to get back and get his hands dirty in the pleasures of Olam Hazeh. Fascinating Ramban. So that's the pshat. When the Ramban is going with the first pshat of Rashi, when the Torah says the Nazir sinned on a soul, it's talking about the Nazir that became Tomei mid Naziris. He brings a chatas because he wasn't careful about his distance from the corpse. Why does every Nazir bring a chatas at the end? That's a Chassidish Shavar, says Ramban. You have to understand that after the days of holiness, he's just ready to get back and get his hands dirty in pleasures of Olam Hazeh. That's what he needs atonement for. So according to the Ramban, being a Nazir is a beautiful thing. Fakert, Hashem is a taina when you stop being a Nazir. According to the Ramban, a regular Nazir that didn't become Tomei in middle is completely great, holy, perfect. God is a taina when it ends. So now it's ending? That. Let's go now to the Alshich, 4 and 5 on each side.
Precedent where you have to bring a carbon before the person even sins. Nazir didn't do anything yet. He's just ending it. He's about to sin. He's about to get into it. No?
He brings the other karbonos to oil and the shlomim, right? The fact that he's doing the ritual to go back home. Listen, you're right. Okay, look at the Alshich, Reb Moshe Alshich from the 1500s, the great Meforish on Chumash. He used to give drushes every Shabbos in his shul in Tzfas, and even the Arizal would occasionally come and sit down and listen to his drushes. And he once gave a drusha on Parshas Vayetze. He spoke about Lavan. The Arizal walked in, he sat down, and he listened. And when he finished, the Arizal told him the drusha was so accurate, even Lavan came. Lavan was here sitting too, listening to your drusha. Anyhow, actually the Alshich was a student of Rabbi Yosef Ka'ara, showing already while they were in Turkey. And when Rabbi Yosef Ka'ara moved to Tzfas because he wanted to go back to yeshiva, because the great Rabbi Yankov Beirav had yeshiva in Tzfas, the Alshich went with him. And Rabbi Yosef Ka'ara gave the famous smicha was reinstituted in those times. Rabbi Yosef Ka'ara received it from Rabbi Yaakov Beirav. Rabbi Yosef Ka'ara gave the real, authentic smicha to the Alshich. And the Alshich gave it to his student, Reb Chaim Vital. Reb Chaim Vital learned Nigla under the Alshich. Now, Reb Chaim Vital, while he was living in Tzfas, he was a busy man. During the day, he was learning Nigla with the Alshich. At night, he was learning Kabbalah with the Arizal. And he made a parnasa during the day to pay the bills. So he was a busy man. Now, the Alshich knows that his prime student, every night, is learning Kabbalah with the Arizal. So the Alshich thinks, why should I lose out? He asked the Arizal, can we learn Kabbalah? Arizal said, it's not for you. Give me a shot. It's like a bacher begging the mashpia to teach Chassidus. And, what often happened back in the day, Chassidim would come to the Rabbeim and often beg for a mimer, and the Rebbe would say no. They would beg and beg. A group of Chassidim once came to the Alter Rebbe and they came begging for mine. Alter Rebbe said, no, I'm not. Alter Rebbe stayed in his room. So the group of Chassidim sat down outside, and they started singing. And the Reb Shlomo Tzashniker, the great Chassid, had a violin, I believe, and they started playing a nigun, and they sang, and it was a very emotional time. And all of a sudden, the Alter Rebbe's door opened. He came out, and he quoted a pasuk from Sefer Malachim. V'hoya kenagin hamanagin. It says about Elisha. Elisha wanted to have prophecy, he couldn't get it. But when there was music, the Eibishter rested upon him. So Alter Rebbe quoted that pasuk as if to say, now that you're saying this nigun, I can say Chassidus. And then he said, I'm a Chassidus for all the Chassidim that came there. Anyhow, so the Alshich begs, the Arizal, they start learning. Whenever they would learn, the Alshich would fall asleep. So the Arizal said, your neshama is shaykh for drush, for the drush element of Torah, not so much the soid, the Kabbalistic element. But either way, this is from the Alshich in this week's parsha, 2 paragraphs. Two beautiful, mamish beautiful ideas that he says. Number 4 and number 5. Look at number 4. On the right-hand side, Ki kavonoso yisbarach, God wants to tell us, yesh lekel yad kol ish Yisrael. Every Jew has the ability, la'asas atzmoi b'bechirosoi, to choose to be like a Kohen Gadol. A Nazir can't become Tomei even to his or her dead relatives, mother, father, sister. A regular Kohen can, not a Kohen Gadol. A Nazir shares this law of the Kohen Gadol. Strange. Says the Alshich, the Eibishter wants to tell each person, if you want, you could be just as great as a Kohen Gadol. You can surpass the Kohen. You can become a Kohen Gadol.
Are you allowed for Tumas Mace?
What?
Are you allowed for...
Yeah, Tumas Mace, yeah. Kohen Gadol. I know you meant Mace Mitzvah. Yeah. There's a major debate, Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Yeshua. What if there's a Kohen Gadol or a regular Kohen versus a Nazir? And only one of them is needed to become Tomei to the dead body. Who should do it? I think we spoke about it. It's a big chapter in the book. The debate of Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Yeshua. But let's leave that for now. Says the Alshich, Baal Yomish, nobody should ever say that Ein Prisha Minyonei Olam Yeyos Rak L'Gvorim. A woman might say that to be holy you have to be a man, Kohen, and not every man, Rak La'anshe HaChochma, men of wisdom, Toisvei HaTorah. Those that, Shevet Levi, that were the bearers of the Torah, they learn day and night, they never rest. But not for the rest of people. Al Kain Omer, therefore Hashem says, Loi Kain, it's not the case. Isha, man or woman, Mikol HaKlolus Muchen Lekach. From, whatever background is able to, but as long as you're a Jew. If you're a Jew, you could become a Kohen Gadol. Man or woman. Right? The Pasuk says, Ishai. The well-known story, about 50 years ago, a few fellows came to 770, non-Lubavitchers, and they wanted to speak to the Rebbe in learning. They wanted to really chepa with him. Reb Shmuel Levitin was there. He saw what's going on. He spoke to them. And these guys were big scholars, and they wanted to come just to, see if they could catch the Rebbe out. So he told them, you guys look like big scholars. Maybe you could answer my question. Can a woman be a Nazir? Oh, they start quoting, they start arguing with each other. Svaras this way, Svaras that way, Gemaras, Lamdas. When they finished, he says, it's a pasuk in Chumash. It says clearly Isha. He says, now you can go ask the Rebbe. They were so embarrassed they didn't go in. Anyhow, so it's incredible. That's what the Alshich says. Every single Jew could become a Kohen Gadol. But look at number 5 on the left-hand side. The Gam Derech Remez Yimers is a hint here. Bal Yomer Ish. Maybe once a person's a Nazir and they go back to their regular life, you know what they're going to think about themselves? Like the Ramban. The whole thing accomplished nothing. Now I'm back to where I was before. Says the Alshich, no. A person, Bal Yomer Ish, Ma Yiten or Ma Yosef Li Hazarat, what's it going to gain? What will I gain for being a Nazir? Haloi, isn't it? We're in number 5 on the left in the second line. Kahatem Nizrus, when my Nazirus finishes, Yovaitar, the razor will come and cut my hair. That refers to the Yetzer Hara. V'galech, what does it mean the Yetzer Hara will cut my hair? He's going to cut off, it's called Kishroni, all my accomplishments. Because it says like this, no, at least call you may ned, at least while you were Nazir, tar, the shaver, which is the Yetzer Hara, won't go on your head. Because until the days are finished, you're holy. V'toiv legever yeh yomim kadosh l'Hashem. First of all, so at least 1 month you'll be heilig. At least 30 days you'll be holy. But then he throws in the clincher. After a month of being holy, you don't go back to being the same person you were. You don't revert to where you were before. You changed forever. Your time is not true. If you control the Yetzer Hara even just a couple days, Yishor Kovash, he'll remain in your control even afterwards. And he has a beautiful diuk in the pasuk, like it says B'soife Inyan. It says in this week's parsha, Va'achar, after the Nazir goes through his procedure to finish his Yishta HaNazir Yain. Afterwards, the Nazir can drink wine. We're calling him a Nazir. We should say, afterwards, the man can go drink wine. He says, no, you see from here, once a Nazir, Kigam even after he goes back to drink wine, he's still called a Nazir. He's still separated minyane ha'olam. Yikari Alech. He still has the title of someone who's epes atefach, a little bit higher. So it's a beautiful alshich, different than the Ramban. The alshich says no. Even when your Naziris ends and you go back to regular life, you're not on the same plateau you were before. You're still called a Nazir. Then you have the Ramah. The Ramah is not in the paper. The Ramah wrote a sefer, Toiras Ha'olah. And in his sefer, Toiras Ha'olah, he says the following. He says, the pasuk says about the Nazir, while he's a Nazir, he shouldn't cut his hair, etc. Kadosh yiyeh, he will be holy. He will be holy. Says the Ramah, you know what that means? While he's a Nazir, he's not really holy. Later he's going to be holy. What does that mean? The Ramah says, while you're a Nazir, you're an extremist. You're an extremist. We just saw Rashi number 2, the second opinion. The Eibusha gave you wine. Why are you preventing yourself? Why are you making vows? That's the life of an extremist. That's not holy. Holiness is the golden path that the Rambam speaks about. The perfect middle path, not veering in any extreme. So it says the Rambam like this. We're talking about a guy that feels like he needs to become a Nazir. Like we're going to see soon, whoever sees the Saita should become a Nazir. But while he's a Nazir, it's extreme behavior. But it's necessary that when the Naziris ends, he can go back to the perfect path. In other words, we're talking about someone who knows that they might stumble in Aveiras. They're on one extreme. So they need to live the life of a Nazir for a bit of time in order that they can balance it out and go. Then afterwards, says the Ramah, the whole Naziris is a preparation. That afterwards he will be holy. So the Ramah says, fakir, the true holiness is after the Naziris ends, when you go back to a regular life, but now your head is screwed on properly, you won't make mistakes, you'll have good judgment. So it's like 3 levels of it. The Ramban says, while you're a Nazir, it's the ultimate. When it's finished, it's all over, you're a sinner. The Alshich says, no. Once you're a Nazir, you're always a Nazir. In other words, even when you go back to regular life, you're holy, because there's going to be an imprint. There's a remnant of that Naziris which will remain with you forever. And the Ramah says even further, fakir, the true holiness is only post, is only after. It's only after. While you're a Nazir, you're an extremist. Afterwards, when you're able, the Naziris will help you that when you come back and you put your feet on the ground, you can have a proper outlook, of how to drink wine, etc., etc., and then you'll erst be holy.
It's also
Okay.
like the Rambam. You need to bend all the way this way.
Exactly, just like the Rambam said. Okay. Now here's the thing. This leads us to, there's a big kasha.
We don't know why they all say you have to bring korbanos though, right?
Hold on. We're going to see a big kasha with a big answer. And this is going to open up to us a bit of a philosophical discussion. And by then it's going to be very late, and slowly you'll all leave. And no. Okay, let's go. But this was just a bit of a hakdama, but you'll see how it's all related. But off the bat, you see that Ramban says be a Nazir. That Ramah says Nazir is really just a means to an end. It's really not where you want to be, right? That we've seen so far. Okay. So we come to number 6. Number 6 is a Gemara in the Dorim Daf Yud, a well-known Gemara. The 2 paragraphs are one after the other. Actually, the one on the left, which is in the middle of the page, comes first. And we're going to read it. So in number 6, middle of the page of Tanya. These couple lines are a very well-known piece of Gemara. Amar Shimon HaTzadik. Shimon HaTzadik in the beginning of the second Beis Hamikdash said, Miyam, my whole life, lo yachalti, he was a Kohen Gadol. I never ate Asham Nazir Tameh. I never ate the Asham, the guilt offering, of a Nazir who became Tameh mid-Naziris. He brings 2 birds, a chatas ha'olah, plus a lamb as an Asham. Says Shimon HaTzadik, I'm a Kohen Gadol. I never partook, because a Kohen eats part of the meat, I never ate the meat from that. Ela echad, only one time. We'll see why, but what was the one time? A famous story, Pam Achas, one time. Bo Adam echad Nazir min Adorim. There was a Nazir came from the south. V're'isiv, I saw the guy. Hu yafei einayim, beautiful eyes. Toy v'roi, so handsome. V'kavtzoisav sturis like taltalim, it means his hair was beautifully combed. Amartil, I said, B'ni, my child, Maro isa lahashchis esarcha zehano. Why'd you become a Nazir? Now that your Naziris is finished, you have to cut off your hair. I'd rather you kept your hair. He said, such beautiful hair. Such beautiful hair, you should have kept it, right? Usually the Anhol is telling the Bachrim to shave the hairs and everything. Here you see fakert. Why, yeah. Why did you become a Nazir and now you have to cut it? Right. So Omar Li, he told me like this. Roya ha'yisi la'aba, I was a shepherd for my father, Be'iri in my city. Halachti lamalas mayim min ha'mayin, I went to fill water from the spring. V'nistakalti b'bavua shali, I looked at my reflection in the water. And I saw that I'm a handsome fellow. U'pachaz ala yitzri, my Yitzhahara started churning within me. U'bikish l'tardani min ha'elam, he wanted me to succumb to sin. I said, Russia, what are you hoarding in a world that doesn't belong to you? You're trying to overcome me? Who am I? My body's just going to one day turn into worms and, I swear by the Beis Hamikdash, I will cut my hair off to heaven. Miyad amadati v'noshakt, what?
He made himself tummy?
No, he became a Nazir in order that when he finished, he would cut off his hair.
But he said only Hashem knows the tummy.
What?
That's the Maisa that in the middle he became.
We're in the middle of this. Wait, hold on. Miyad right away says Shimon HaTzadik, amadati v'noshakti v'al. Yeah, this guy Taka became Tomei mid-Naziris.
Yeah, nothing to do
but that
with
might have been an accidental. Right away, I kissed him. I said, B'ni, my child, this is how a Nazir should be. Alech, it's about you, the Torah says, in this week's parasha, Ish kiyafli lindar neder Nazir la'azir la'Hashem. If a person makes a neder to be a Nazir for the Eibishter, you did it only for God, no other reason. So Shimon HaTzadik says, any Nazir that became Tomei in middle, I would not partake of his or hers korban asham. And this was the only time, this guy. But it sounds from Shimon HaTzadik that a regular Nazir, he would eat from the korbanos. It was only, he says clearly, only from the Nazir Tameh. So he's differentiating between a Nazir that become Tameh versus a regular Nazir. Why would that be? L'chayra, going back to number 2 in Rashi, the first opinion of Rashi, which Nazir is a sinner? Only the one that became Tameh mid-Naziris. But Stam a Nazir? Nish gefährlich. Now look at number 6 on the right side of the page. The Gemara then continues, brings a Braisa. Rabbi Yehuda Eimer, Chasidim Harishonim, the early pious people, Hayu Misa'avin Lahavi Korban Chatas. The Chasidim, they wanted to bring a sin offering. The problem is they never sinned. Lefisha Ein HaKadosh Baruch Hu maybe Takal Aydem, Hashem wouldn't let them sin. So they were deprived of this opportunity. What did they do? Oimdinu Misnadvin Naziris Lamakam. So they would become Nazirim. Because every Nazir, when he finishes, brings a chatas in order to become chayv a korban chatas lamakam. That's what Rabbi Yehuda says. Rabbi Shimon Omer never happened. They never made a neder to be a Nazir. Ella rather, If someone wanted to bring an oila, they made a gift, misnadav v'mevi, shlomi, misnadav v'mevi. Toida and the 4 types of breads they would bring as a gift. Avul b'naziris lo yisnadvu, and they never became a nazir. Why? Kedei shelo yikoru chaytin, they shouldn't be considered sinners. According to Reb Shimon, every nazir is a sinner. Shenemar, as it says, v'chiper alav masher chata ala nefesh, the pasuk we saw in number 1. It says about the nazir that he sinned on his soul. Now, we started off that Rashi brings 2 opinions. Does that mean specifically the Nazir that became Tameh, or every Nazir? Well, that's the debate here of Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon says clearly every Nazir is a sinner. So the early pious people, they wouldn't become a Nazir to have the chance to bring a Chatos, because a Nazir is a sinner. Rabbi Yehuda says, no, what sinner? The guy that becomes Tameh in middle, he's the sinner, but regularly. Continues the Gemara, Amar Abaya, Shimon HaTzadik, V'Rabbi Shimon, V'Ra'Lazar HaKaper, the 3 of them, Kulon Shita Achas, and they all have the same opinion, that Nazir is a sinner. Now the truth is not exactly the same. I pointed out Shimon HaTzadik only had a problem with who? A Nazir that became Tameh. Rabbi Shimon says any Nazir. But Abai is just grouping them together. In general, you see that they pointed out there's an issue. And he continues. Shimon HaTzadik v'Reb Shimon Hada Arman. Shimon HaTzadik we saw, and Reb Shimon we just saw now. What about Rabbi Lazar HaKaper? Where does he say his opinion? Titania, it's in a brayser. Rabbi Lazar HaKaper, Beribi is just a title that big people had. This is what Rashi quotes in number 2. Oim Rabbi Lazar HaKaper would say, V'chiper alav masher chata ala nefesh. That be'ez nefesh chata zeh. What did the Nazir do? Who did the Nazir sin against? Elatzier atzma min hayayin. He abstained from wine, like Rashi quoted. And Rabbi Lazar HaKaper continues, V'aloid v'tzakav v'chaymer. Madach, this guy that only stopped drinking wine, God calls him a sinner. Imagine someone who fasts. Imagine someone who's mitzayir himself from everything. Mikan, from here you see, kol hayoshev b'tainus nikra chayte. Anyone that sits in a fast is a sinner, according to Rabbi Lazar HaKaper. So this is the Gemara. Rashi Grada quotes it from Tainus. It's from a few places in Shas. Rabbi Lazar HaKaper is the one who says every Nazir is a sinner because he abstained from wine. Rabbi Shimon agrees with him. Shimon HaTzadik holds only a Nazir that accidentally became Tameh. Continues the Gemara, one more line. Frek the Gemara, what's Rabbi Lazar HaKaper talking about? Our kasha we asked in the beginning. V'haden kra ben Nazir tameksiv. Where in the Bible does it say the Nazir was a sinner? The pasuk number 1. It's talking about the Nazir that became Tameh mid Naziris. What's Rabbi Lazar HaKaper talking about? Says the Gemara, mishum deshana bechetu, because that guy doubled the sin. The guy that became Tameh during the Naziris has a few strikes against him. A, he became a Nazir. B, wasn't careful about coming Tameh. That's how Rashi learns throughout Shas. The double chet is A is a Nazir B'chlal. B, wasn't careful about coming Tameh. Tosfos adds another thing. He was only ready to become Nazir for 30 days, right? Let's say. 25 days in, it comes Tameh. Starts again. Who said this guy can hack 55 days? Can't handle it. He can't handle it. It's too much. That's why that's what Tosfos adds. In fact, the Gemara in the Dorim there says there's another issue, and another issue is that if somebody does become Tameh in middle, and then it all starts again, and they can't handle, let's say the case we said of 55 days. It was meant to be 30, came Tameh after 25, you got to start again. If it ends up being too much, and they never had this in mind, l'chadchila, it could be the whole Naziris was a mistake, and then the karbonos they're going to bring at the end are not obligatory karbonos, and is biblically prohibited to bring non-obligatory karbonos to the Beis Hamikdash. So there's really a few issues. The Klei Yoker says, and the Klei Yoker also adds another knetch. The Klei Yoker in this week's parasha says, if the guy became Tameh middle starts again, so the first 25 days was for nothing. He was stam mitzayir himself from wine. He didn't get anything from it. So that's the pshat. In other words, like this. According to Rabbi Lazar HaKaper and Rabbi Shimon, every Nazir is a chayta. But the guy that became Tomei in middle has many more strikes against him. The fact he became Tomei, why didn't he realize there's a dead body nearby? Like Rashi says. Now that it starts again, he may not be able to hack all the lengthy time. Thirdly, the whole Nazirus may be a mistake, and then the Karbonis he brings at the end are not warranted. And the Klei Yakar adds, fourthly, the days that were knocked off were stam. He was inflicting pain upon himself. Fine, that's that. That seems to be very fine. But then we come to number 8. Number 8 is a Gemara in the beginning of Nazir, which is an absolute direct contradiction to what we saw in number 6. And we see number 8. The beginning of Masechta Nazir says, somebody gets up and says, Ahei, no, I will be nice. That is tantamount to accepting upon yourself to be a Nazir. Frek Gemara, what?
Nice.
Yeah, I will be, yeah. Frek Gemara, Vidilma eino lefanav b'mitzvahs. Maybe it means I will be nice before God in mitzvahs. Kedatanya, ze keli vanveyu, one should adorn God. Eino lefanav b'mitzvahs, to be nice. What's a better word?
Beautiful.
Yeah, to be beautiful in front of God in mitzvahs, to make a sukkah na, a nice sukkah, a nice lulav, nice tzitzis, sefer Torah na, put a nice mantle around the sefer Torah. So if someone says I'm going to be, nice to the Eibishter, how in the world does that mean he'll be a Nazir? Amar Shmuel shetafus b'saroi. The guy's holding his hair and saying, I will be not in front of God. Va'amar and no, I will be desirable in front of God. So Frekma, wait a second. How could nice mean Nazirus? I thought Nazirus is a bad thing. Nazira milsa d'Aveira? Nazirus is an Aveira, the Gemara says. Va'amrinu le'no, and you're calling this to be nice? Says the Gemara, Nazirus is not an Aveira. Even Rabbi Lazar HaKaper, who says, Nazir is a sinner. Heni mili, when is that? Gabe Nazir Tomei, only if the Nazir became Tomei in middle. Da'iri de boy, Mister, since he has to knock off the days he counted until then, because it says, the Hashem says, Hayavim Harishim, the first days Yiplu, Tomei Nizroi. So Hasam, there's a problem. Dilma Asi Lemevra al Niziruse. Who said he can hack the whole 55 days? Since he has to restart, he may not be able to hack it. Avol Nazir Torah, but a pure Nazir is not a sinner. The Gemara here says clearly in number 8, Rabbi Lazar HaKaper holds, which Nazir is a sinner? The Nazir that became Tomei. A Nazir that didn't is not a sinner. We saw in number 6, that the number 6 in the end said black and white, literally, black on white said fakert. That every Nazir is a sinner, just a guy that became Tomei is a double sinner.
This goes against what Abaye was saying.
It goes against everything. No, that
Shimon HaTzadik, you could read that it would only be talking about Hashem Nazir.
Shimon HaTzadik Taka holds that only the guy that became Tomei in middle. But in number 6, look at number 6 on the right-hand side, the last 2 lines. The Gemara said clearly, the Gemara said, according to Lazar HaKaper, every Nazir is a sinner. Why does the Torah say it by the guy that became Tomei? Because he sinned doubly. But every Nazir sins. This is a huge contradiction. So join me on the next page. Tosfos deals with this in many places in Shas. Number 7 is a Tosfos in Baba Kama, Tzadik Aleph. Tosfos asked the Kasha, and listen to what he says. The Gemara there quotes Rabbi. The Gemara there's actually discussing who said it's usher to hurt yourself. Is a person allowed to harm themselves? And the Gemara quotes Rabbi Lazar HaKaper, if you can't even abstain from wine because you're inflicting pain upon yourself, how much more so you cannot cut yourself, God forbid. Says Tosfos, number 7, L'chayra mashmitz mashma, according to Rabbi Lazar HaKaper, that benazir Torah nami, even a pure nazir, every nazir, we say is a sinner. And then Tosfos quotes 2 Gemaras, that Kasav Rabbi Lazar HaKaper, Nazir Torah chayte, even the pure Nazir is a sinner. V'hainu time, where in number 7, the 5th line, if every Nazir is a sinner, so why did the Chumash write about the Nazir Tomei? Because he's mipnei sheshana b'chet, because he doubled the sin. Like we saw in number, and then he quotes Beper Kama Dunadorim, which is our quote on number 6. And then he says a V'tema, what we saw in number 8. Per Kama Dunazir, Daf Gimel in Nazir Parach, the Gemara says, Naziris is a milsav and Aveira. Vamrino le nor could. And yet you're saying when the guy says, I'll be nice, he means a Nazir. Umashani, the Gemara says, even according to Belezer HaKapar, who says Nazir's a sinner, only if he becomes Tameh, because he has to get rid of the first days and maybe can hack the extra days. But a regular Nazir is not a sinner. Major contradiction. He asks the contradiction. Again, the contradiction is, one Gemara says, Rabbi Belezer HaKapar holds only the Nazir that became Tameh is a sinner, because he loses his first days. And now he has to start again. Who said he can hack it? He may not be able to hack it, and who knows what's going to happen. But another Gemara, in number 6 in the Durham, says clearly, Rabbi Belezer HaKapar holds every Nazir is a sinner because he's abstaining from wine. The guy that became Tameh is just a double sinner. So comes Rabbeinu Tam and says the whopper. Rabbeinu Tam says like this. Sometimes in life, the Eibishter's will is not black and white. It's gray. Sometimes there's an act you have to do, but you'll get punished for it. But you have to do it anyways. Because the pros outweigh the cons. And this is what we're going to discuss. Says Rabbeinu Tam, Rabbi Belezer HaKapar holds every Nazir is a sinner. Because why are you abstaining from what the Eibishter allowed? Every Nazir is a sinner. But the regular Nazir, the amount that stays pure and sticks to the rules, the amount that he gains from being a Nazir outweighs, it justifies the fact that he abstained from wine. The guy that became Tameh is considered the real sinner, for all the reasons we mentioned before. The reasons we said was A, the fact he wasn't careful from the dead body, B, all the days that were lost, he abstained, he doesn't get anything for it. And then all the karbonos might be a suffix, and etc., etc. And Rabbeinu Tam says like this: when we say that he's not a sinner, hainu mitzvah gedolah min haveira. The mitzvah outweighs the sin. It's a mitzvah to become a Nazir. As everyone knows, why is Saita mentioned next to Nazir? Whoever sees a Saita in her kilkul should become a Nazir. You should become a Nazir. If you see a Saita bekilkula, you see the woman and they're taking her hair apart and everything, and you say, how did this happen? The frivolous behavior is a result of partying and wine. If you saw that, it's like the Baal Shem Tov's word, by the way, of if you saw it, it means something to you. Why did the Eibishter let you see the Saita bekilkula? Why the Baal Shem Tov has a famous thing. Baal Shem Tov said every Jew's a mirror. If you see a flaw in someone, it's your own flaw. So the Rebbe asks, what does that mean? Maybe the Eibishter wants you to see the flaw in someone to help them. So the Rebbe said it depends on how you see the flaw in that person. If you see the flaw in the other person just as an opportunity to help, taka, maybe it's just to help them. But if you see it and you start judging them, then the only reason God let you do that is to teach you that you have the flaw yourself. And that's the idea. If you see the Saita bekilkula, you see the Saita, but not in a way you can help her. You just see the issue for what it is. You see her misery and her kilkul, and there's nothing you could do to help her. Why did God show it to you? There's a hayra. You have to become a Nazir. It just fits perfect with the words of the Maimer Chazal. So it says Rabbeinu Tam, you should become a Nazir. Umikomachim, nonetheless, ktsas yesh chet. You'll get punished. Become the Nazir. But you're going to get punished too. It's kavaldik.
Isn't this whole thing of because the mitzvah is greater than Aveira is like a bit of a slippery slope?
We're going to see soon how slippery it gets.
You could steal if you can give it to the tzedakah. The mitzvahs.
Yeah. Midi dahava amisana tainas chaloim b'Shabbos. Rabbeinu Tam says, I have a proof. If someone has a bad dream Friday night, a horrible dream, you have the right to fast Shabbos by day. To clean up, it's a form of tshuva, that in case, as God forbid, any punishment against you in heaven, you can annul that. Shekorin gzardinai, that fast, whenever you fast after a bad dream, it can tear up any decree they have in heaven against you. And you do it on Shabbos too if you had a bad dream Friday night. But then in heaven they ask you, you fasted on Shabbos? How do you fast on Shabbos? And Maitakan, there's a Gemara in Brachos, by the way. What are you supposed to do? Lace of Tainus Latanis. You got to fast during the week to make up for the fact you fasted on Shabbos.
for the
But I thought you're supposed to fast on Shabbos. Yeah, you are. But you still gotta rectify. The mitzvah is gedolim in Aveira. And therefore, v'hachi kamar ben Nazir. Says Rabbeinu Tam, the definitive pshat in Rabbi Lazar HaKapper is the following. I feel the Rabbi Lezer who holds that every Nazir is a sinner. Hani mili, if the Nazir became Tomei, he's the real sinner. Because there's so many strikes against him. Why wasn't he careful about the dead body? The first days disappear. He stam abstained from wine. Who said he'll be able to hack now that there's a whole new set of days? Who said he'll be able to hack it? And maybe he regrets the whole Nazirus to the Karbonis at the end, our question. Avol Nazir Torah, but if he remained pure, he's not such a sinner. He's a sinner. But the sin is justified because of the gain that he receives. So going back to number 6 and number 8, they're both true. In number 8, the Gemara in Nazir Daf Gimel said that a regular Nazir is a great guy. He'll get punished. He's a shtickle sinner. But what he did was right. And therefore, when you say, I will be nice, that can include being a Nazir. On the other hand, Rabbi Lazar HaKapper says, you're still a chayta. So this is a fascinating idea of Rabbeinu Tam. That sometimes you got to do something, but you'll still get punished. Should you do it or should you not do it? Is it right? Not completely. So this opens up a major can of worms. So let's just see a little bit where this takes us. A fascinating debate, 8 and 9, between the Sefer HaChinuch and the Ran. They're discussing the following idea, a very important idea, which is the Torah says you always follow the majority. But what if the minority are actually right? A Bezdin has a machlokes. The Sanhedrin are discussing a halacha. You know, many of them say A, most of them say B. You're always going to follow the Torah says in Parashat Mishpatim, you follow the rabbi. But you're sure?
Yeah, like even if they're telling you to do something that's not the right thing to do, you're supposed to go against them.
Okay, that's a bit, but when Bezdin says something, it's not so posh. There's a big, lots of shilas about that. If you know Bezdin's, Rashi quotes from the Sifri, even if they tell you what's right is left and left is right. Yet, if Bezdin says that something, is okay to do, and you know it's not okay to do it, no, very often you know better, and you don't have the right just to say, well, Bezdin. But let's leave that for another shir. Here we're talking about when you have the majority against the minority. And they're both actually, the Sefer HaChinuch and the Ran, they both lived a while back. The Sefer HaChinuch, we believe, was written by the Aaron Halevi of Barcelona, the friend of the Rashba. So you're talking about the 1200s in Spain. And the Ran, this is from the Sefer Droshas Haran. For many years, there's been a back and forth. Who wrote the Droshas Haran? Is it the famous Rabbeinu Nissim, who passes away in the end of the 1300s in Spain, or is it an earlier Rabbeinu Nissim? It keeps on going back and forth. Even as of a couple of years ago, Fruma scholars were being riots this way, that way.
What's the difference in years?
It could be the Ran, who was a student, 2 generations. It's a debate of 100 years. Anyhow, says the Sefer HaChinuch in number 8. The story in Baba Metzia, Rabbi Lezer ben Hurkanus versus the other Tanoim, arguing about a certain oven. A din, if it's pure or impure, Rabbi Lezer was alone on one side, the other Chachamim against him. Rabbi Lezer did not back down, and he said, if I'm right, he even said, a bas kol will come down from heaven, and a voice came down from heaven and said he's right. And nonetheless, Rabbi Yeshua and the other Chachamim, they said, no, Torah is not in heaven. Torah was given to us. We don't have to listen to bas kols, to voices from heaven. God said in Parshas Mishpatim, you follow the majority, and that's it. So says the Sefer HaChinuch, Ve'eviu raya min adina kavu b'ter. The other rabbis, this is the Sefer HaChinuch in Parshas Shoftim. They brought a proof from a din, shetzivasonu, that Hashem said to follow the majority. Bein yoimru emes, whether they say the truth or whether they're toyim, they're mistaken. Valzeh heishiv baruch hu nitzchuni b'ni. When Rabbi Yeshua said that we don't have to listen to God over here, because God gave the Torah to us. Those are the rules that He made. Hashem said, you're right. Koloimar said the Sefer HaChinuch, the other rabbis were off the mark. Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Lezer got it right, not them. But Veheim Boimel, what was their excuse? God said in Torah, you follow the majority. So Im Kain, Hashem said like this. In this case, the majority are wrong. But Al Koponim, Yesh Lohoides Bepam Hazois Kedivreim. It's worth it to go after the majority when they're wrong, even though Shetiyah ha'emes nederes, even though truth will be thrown out the window, because of the overall good of following the majority. If you wouldn't follow the majority, imagine every person would do what they want. Because of the overall benefit of following the majority, there are some times where you're going to do what's wrong. And he says the emes will be removed. And he said, it says, if Bala emes natsuch, it's as if God was beaten in his own game. That's why God said to Rabbi Yeshua, my child has been victorious over me. Hold on, this is what the Sefer HaChinuch says.
Do we know what they were arguing about?
Yeah, about a whole oven over there. You can check it up. Bob and see a Daf Nun Tes. You could check it
if
up.
Some random guy knows that they were wrong, or I'm saying it's case Rabbi Lezer, but in some cases, some random guy. How did these Chacham not see that they were wrong, or like why did they stay so strongly?
They were convinced in the way they understood, and you have to pass in the way you understand. Comes the Ran. This is in his drosha Zion, a long drosha, and he discusses the same thing, but he says a little bit different. He quote number 9, Loi b'shamayim. Rabbi Yeshua got up on his feet and he said, Torah is not in heaven. I don't care that a voice came down from Shemayim and said the law follows Rabbi Lezer. Zeu inin Rabbi Lezer hagadol and the machlekes. Like we say in Bab Metzir. Hine ro kulam. They all saw Rabbi Lezer maskim el. Okay, there must be some. Oh no. Yeah. Okay, when this was. All the words here are mixed around.
Number 9.
Yeah, you go to the third line. Rabbi Lezer was maskim to the truth more than them. V'chi oisois of kulam, and the signs that he said that a certain. He said that the room should cave in, if I'm right. He said, and all the things started caving in. Rabbi Yeshua got up and said, if rabbis are fighting with each other in halacha, what do the walls have to do with this? So the Gemara says the wall stopped caving in, but they wouldn't go back up. In deference to Rabbi Lezer, they wouldn't go back up. In deference to Rabbi Yeshua, they wouldn't cave in completely. And the building is still... I learned in that yeshiva a few years ago. Yeah, yeshiva just like that. I learned, Anyhow. And Vichriyum and Hashemayim Kidvar. Va'afal pigay, nonetheless, the other rabbis also Maisa Kaskamasim, based on the way they understood. Look at the second last line of number 9. Since in their mind of the other rabbis, Rabbi Yeshua and the others, they felt that the oven should be tameh, even though they knew that they were maskim hepech min ha'emes. They saw from all of Rabbi Lezer's spiritual tricks that they were wrong. But they couldn't understand that it was Torah. To them it was so clear that it was tameh, you have to follow the way you understand. Lo yirotzu l'tahor. Even though God said in truth it should be tahor, they have to pass in the way they understand. If they would be matar, he said fakert. If they would have said it's tahor because the Baskol said, they would have broken Torah. Torah demands you pass in the way you understand, because their mind thinks it's tameh. And then he says, the hachra was given to Chacham of all the generations, but then this is the clincher. Asher yaskimu heim hu asher tzivo Hashem. When Hashem says you follow the majority, whatever they decide, that becomes the will of Hashem. In other words, before they made the decision, the Eibishter really wants it to be tahor, like Rabbi Lezer. The other Chacham say it could be, but the way God wired us, we see that it's tameh, so we have to say tameh. And once they give that psak, says the Ran, that becomes the will of God. The Sefer HaChinuch said, no, Sefer HaChinuch said, even after the psak, the emes was lost. Right. The Ran says, no, that becomes the will of Hashem. Right. So they say that what's the debate is, can you have this idea where the Eibishter's will is multifaceted? that it's wrong and right at the same time. Rabbeinu Tam's idea that you could do something which on the one hand you're supposed to do, on the other hand you get flack for it. According to that the Sefer Chinuch works perfect. That when you follow the rabbim, it could be they're wrong, and what's happening now is taka, a wrong psak. But for the sake of the general peace and harmony of following the majority, it's worth it at times to lose the truth. So you're following the majority because God wants. On the other hand, this particular issue, God really doesn't want this. According to the Ran, that's all before the psak's given. Once the psak is given, that's what the Eibishter wants. So whatever the majority of the Chachamim say, that becomes the pure will of Hashem.
So Ran would disagree with
So the right. I'm saying, yeah. So where does this take us? Okay.
I was playing with Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Yeshua the whole story. On Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, the stick.
How does it come in?
Rabbi Gamliel was wrong, and he was. But he was
so when it comes to Kiddush HaChodesh, there's a special din more than anywhere else. The Torah says 3 times Atem that you should call the Yomim Tovim. In Parashas Emor, Atem, that giving the Bezdin the right to decide when Rosh Chodesh is, even if they were mistaken, even if they were forced to declare the wrong day, even if they were deliberate in declaring the wrong day, whatever the Bezdin says, that day becomes Rosh Chodesh, and the Yomim Tovim follow suit, even if they were deliberately wrong. It's a special din by Kiddush HaChodesh.
But he got punished for doing that. So
Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Gamliel said, you got to come to me on my day.
So Rabbi Gamliel got punished for that.
What punishment did he get?
He got booted
That was because of a later story.
Yeah, but this was the real. This was the big
that
thing.
dream afterwards. That really
You know, because he didn't have to do that. He didn't have to tell Rabbi Yeshua.
He could have said he was
He
proving his
embarrassed him.
point. He was
He
proving
embarrassed-
majority rules,
he
and
was
he was
embarrassed.
saying, "I'm the boss."
You don't have to be Mahad. You don't have to go. He went overboard.
Rabbi Kiva agreed with him. Rabbi Kiva agreed with Rabbi Yeshua.
Said it, but he also told him
They
he
all
has to
do.
go to Rabbi Gamliel. He also told him to go to
Yeah.
Rabbi Gamliel. So, in other words, when it comes to Kiddush HaChodesh, there's much more of an idea that whatever the Bezdin says, that becomes fact.
But according to the
No. By Kiddush HaChodesh, everyone agrees. Atem afilu mezidin. Even if Bezdin deliberately chose the wrong day, that becomes Rosh
becomes a
Chodesh,
fact, right.
and the Yom Tovim follow suit. And there is no other dimension, other.
It's more like the Ran though, because then it becomes reality that's when.
By Kiddush HaChodesh, everyone agrees. There's no debate there. Weiter.
Yeah.
Okay. Now here's the thing like this. There's a very scary sugya in halacha called doing an Aveira Lishma. And it takes us to number 11. Number 11. Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak said, Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, Gedoyla Aveira Lishma, Mimitzvah Shaloi Lishma. It's better to do it in number 11, Elif. It's better to do an Aveira Lishma than a mitzvah not Lishma. What's it talking about? The story of Yael. Yael was a married woman. It's a big debate if at the time of the story she was Jewish or not, but she lived in Eretz Yisrael. Her wife, she was the wife of Chever Hakeni, who was an Einukul of Yisrael. Yeah. And Sisera was a general of the Goyish army who was harassing the Yidden for years. And while Sisera was losing one of the wars against Aveira and Barak, he runs into the tent of Yael. Yael seduces him, and then she kills him. Now, when she seduced him, she was a married woman.
I thought we learned a little while ago that with a non-Jew, it's not a...
No, it's one of the 7 mitzvahs that a guy...
No, but a guy has to do it, but a Jew with a non-Jew, it's not the same.
No, but Pasha, she wasn't Jewish then.
So they're...
Had she been Jewish,
It
would
would've
be
been
a
okay.
big debate between Rabbeinu Tam and his brother, if when it comes to a goy, well, what exactly the issue is. But go to number 11 says Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, an Aveira Lishma is better than a mitzvah not Lishma.
What does that mean?
Doing an Aveira for the Eibishter is better than someone who does a mitzvah with not Lishma.
Her Aveira was the...
Better what Yael did, she didn't Aveira, but in order to save the Jewish people. Better doing the wrong thing for the right reasons than the right thing for the wrong reasons. That's what it means. Better do the wrong thing for the right reasons than the right thing for the wrong reasons. So fragt the Gemara, but Rav Yehuda said in the name of Rav, La'olam yasek adam b'toiru b'mitzvahs afilu shaloi lishman. Shemetech shlishman lishman. Better a person should do Torah and mitzvahs even for the wrong reasons, because from there you'll come to the right reasons. So what do you see from there? That even shaloi lishma is a good thing. So how could you say that Aveira Lishma is better than a mitzvah that's not Lishma? A mitzvah that's not Lishma is the pathway that everyone's supposed to
At
take.
that moment, when you do the mitzvah.
So says the Gemara, Ela Ema, it's not better, it's equal. It's ka mitzvah shaloi Lishma. The Gemara just goes back a little. They're equal. Doing the wrong thing for the right reason is equal doing the right thing for the wrong reason. What's the raya? It says, Tavoirich minoshim yoel. Yoel, you should be more benched than the women, the wife of Chever Akeni. Minoshim ba'oil tavich, you should be benched more than the women of the tent. Man, who were the women of the tent? Sarah Rivka Rachel Valeah. And actually sounds like she should be benched more than them, which was the original approach of the Gemara. Rabbi Yochanan said, 7 be'ilas ba'al oisei Rasha. Sisera was with her 7 times ba'oisei Shah. And he quote then the Gemara. Wait a second. V'hakam is hanya, but she enjoyed it. An aveira lishma. What does it mean? You do it for God, but there's no personal enjoyment. But she enjoyed mi beila delay from the beila. So then you can't call it an aveira lishma if you also enjoy it. The only heter of doing the wrong thing for the right reason is if it's completely for the Eibishter. So Rabbi Yochanan says no, she didn't enjoy it. Kol toivasen shel rishoim ein el roya tzadikim. For a tzaddik like Yael, any interaction with a Rasha is just hideous. It's just miserable and horrible.
How do you bring up proof in this pasuk? Sorry if Rachel Leah is not mitzvah shaloi lishma.
Yes, it is. Rashi there says, sorry if Rachel Leah were with their husbands to have children. They wanted to have kids.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty scary, yeah? So mitzvah, when the Mois, we know, Leah, they wanted to have kids.
Right.
So they're with their husbands to have kids. That, the Gemara calls that a mitzvah shaloi lishma.
Wow.
Crazy. So this is the idea called an Aveira Lishma. And the question is, Aveira Lishma mamash means that sometimes is what you're doing right or wrong? It's complicated. It's not black, it's not white. It's like Rabbeinu Tam said, there's an Aveira element, but there's a mitzvah element. You got to know what outweighs what. Now the question is this rule brought, Lamaisa, in halacha? The Ramchal, the great Ramchal, the big Kabbalist in the times of the Baal Shem Tov, he writes about Shabsai Tzvi and Shabsai Tzvi's gang that they pulled out this Gemara of Aveira Lishma and they started being matir all types of issues. There's all different rumors exactly what they allowed, but they definitely allowed certain prohibitions under the guise of, it's an Aveira, but it's for the Eibishter, and Aveira Lishma is okay. And the Ramchal says that the only one that can say that is either a prophet or thousands of years ago, he says, the story of Yael, he says, you have to know the Gilgulim going on over there. The Gilgulim of Yael enabled her to do what she did, but it can never be used out of that context. It has no actual ramifications past the Gemara. That's what the Ramchal says. However, look in the Sefer Ikrim number 10. The Sefer Ikrim, Rabbi Yosef Elboy passes away in the mid-1400s. He said the rule's like this. Any action that someone does for the sake of Hashem, you get Chayil Haba. Even if in the action it appears that it's bad, but if you're doing it for the Eibishter, you go straight to heaven. And then he quotes 2 Gemaras. One of them is a Gemara in Brachas, a statement of Rava, a crazy statement. You know what the Gemara says? B'chol drachecha de'eyu. You should know Hashem in all your ways. Says Rava, even l'dvar avera, even if you're doing an avera. Rava says sometimes knowing the Eibush and everything you do means even while you're doing an avera, do it for the Eibishter.
Do it for the Eibush.
Eibishter or have still have.
It's like it's like the Ganav when he stands at Pumas Charta, Rachmana Karya, when he stands about to, even when you're about to steal, don't forget about the Eibishter. The problem is that sometimes we say fakir, if someone does an Aveira having in mind one day he'll be able to repent, then he'll never be able to do tshuva. Fakir, no, well, I don't see why it's so different. If you're having in mind the Eibishter,
help me with this
if you're
crime.
having...
No.
Say, but most learn though that it's not referring to the Ganva Fumas Chartu and the Ganva.
Anything.
Wow,
That's
that's doing it intentionally because you're going to get.
It's a whole calculation of don't I have to.
No,
worry.
no,
That's
having
not
the
doing it
Eibishter
for
in
a
mind is a way worse, because if that didn't stop you from doing the Aveira, how are you gonna have real repentance and real regrets?
I don't think
If you
you're
didn't
thinking
think
of
about
it.
God, you could say later, I don't know what I was thinking. But if you're thinking about the Eibishter, you did the Aveira anyway. So how do you have true charata later?
Why did Yiftach get punished?
Why did he get punished?
Lishma for the Aveira. He went to the Shechter.
No.
Didn't do it.
No, that was for his own stubborn. He did it as shema for himself, because he couldn't break away from what he did.
He made his
and
neder.
bend himself and
The
go to
neder that he
Pinchas.
made was uncalculated.
Yeah.
Whatever comes out of my house, I'll bring his.
And he could have gone to Pinchas and got it. What's it called?
Right, right.
He said,
And he
"Pinchas had
didn't have
come
to make the
me."
neder lechatchila. No one asked him to do this mitzvah. You know. Anyhow, so. Well, so that's what the. Anyway, the simple reading of the Gemara is Aveira Lishma. Most people connect this Gemara, and look at that. The Ikrim continues. Va'amru oid. He quotes our Gemara in Nazir. Gedoyla Aveira Lishma. Then a mitzvah, and he doesn't quote the emendation. The Gemara says equal. Actually, most Rishonim, when they quote the Gemara, they don't quote the emendation that is equal.
Who in the Gemara said that?
The Bayas, it doesn't give a name. Eloema. I think there's another Girsa that some say it was Rav that said it. There was a debate between Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak and Rav if it's greater. Because at the end of the day, that pasuk of Yael is benched more than the women of the tent is mashma that they're greater. Anyhow, so the Ikrim puts the two together. He's saying B'chol. He is quoting the Gemara in Brachas, not just when you do an Aveira, think of Hashem. Look what he says 2 lines before. You're doing it for the Eibishter. So it's not just someone stealing and says, God help me. We're talking about someone that steals in order to
get Robin
Hood.
Yeah.
Steal to it's a different
That's
thing.
the Ikrim. That's different than him.
Right. Well, that's you see from you see how the Ikrim is quoting the Gemara in Brachas. You're doing the Aveira for the
You
Eibishter.
can't have any unknown in the Aveira.
There's a
Cannot sell the movie.
There's a story 300 years ago. There was a shul in Europe where the talking was out of hand. But it wasn't stam talking. Screaming. Tzaikas fighting back and forth. It was to the point that the Rabbonim made a cherem that the cherem was against screaming in shul. Yeah, people were belittling each other an entire day. No one can scream in shul on pain of being in cherem. And it was a serious cherem. Shul was quiet. One day, one of the Balabatim said a real shtech to the Rav. Quietly. He didn't break the cherem of... But one of the daveners there was... One of the people there started screaming. How could you... He screamed to defend the Rav, but he broke the cherem. So the Shavus Yankov, Rabbi Yankov Reisha, was asked, I guess by this guy, what does he do now? He broke the cherem. So the Shavus Yankov says 2 things. Number 1, when the cherem was made about people screaming, it didn't mean that you can't scream to defend the Rav. That for sure is allowed. But then he says, even if I'm wrong, and even if you broke the cherem, you can't break a cherem, is serious things. It's not very Lishma. He says it was worth it. Even if you broke the cherem, you're attacking the cherem, but it was worth it. It's a prohibition to put yourself in cherem, but it was worth it. And he says, Aveira Lishma. The mitzvah gedolah min Aveira, Aveira Lishma, putting together everything we're seeing over here. What?
You still get punished, but go for it.
In the times of the Chassam Sofer, a little closer to us, there was a shul that made a plaque, and they wrote on the plaque, Zeh hashar la Hashem tzadikim yavoy yavoy. And la Hashem, it had the Eibishter's name. Maybe Aleph Dalet Nun Yud, whatever, it had the Eibishter's name. One guy, some shugana, he took the plaque into the bathroom and nailed it into the wall. Or I don't need, in such a way they couldn't take it out. Mamash in the stalls of the bathroom. So the
Sugar is back there.
Go figure.
so they sent people in. They couldn't take it out. It was wedged. They couldn't take it out. So the Chassam Sofer said they should etch out the Eibishter's name. You mamish can't do that. It's worth it. It's worth it because the bizoyin of having the Eibishter's name in the bathroom, it's worth it.
Couldn't you just get rid of the bathroom? You know,
There's a hole in the
Wasn't
let's make another hole.
Put a piece of wood.
Get rid of the whole bathroom and just leave it. Anyhow, but so famously the Ishbitzer, the great Ishbitzer Rebbe, 150 years ago, he got in a lot of trouble by the Misnagdim for saying this. He said that when Zimri went into the tent and was with Cosby, what was Zimri thinking? Zimri was a Nasi of Shevet Shimon. He was a tzaddik. The Ishbitzer says like this: when a tzaddik who has no Yetzer Hara all of a sudden gets a taiva to do something, it's coming from God. And therefore, let themselves do the Aveira. Have in mind the Eibishter. It's an Aveira for God.
Wow.
He says Zimri did it. Lishma, you know what the Lishma was? Because who's Cosby? Cosby is the daughter of
king over there.
Tzur. Tzur is Balak, king of Moav. The spark of David HaMelech that was in Moav, in the country of Moav, which goes back to the Shira, Zimri wanted to get from Cosby. He was trying to suck out of her that his child should be the progenitor of David HaMelech. He was trying to suck out the spiritual chayas from Moav. So he knew what he was doing was wrong, but he's like, why do I have a taiva for this? Apparently the Eibush is pushing me here. It's an Aveira Lishma, and the Lishma was to suck out the energy of Moav. And no, the Ishbitzer says that Pinchas didn't realize
His intentions.
J.B. Soloveitchik says, the Ishbitzer says Pinchas didn't realize what Zimri was doing. The Ishbitzer didn't realize what Pinchas was doing. so the Misnag, the Reb Chaim Volozhner and the Nefesh HaChaim in a few places, he rips, he's before the Ishbitzer, but he rips these ideas because apparently the early Misnagdim felt the Chassidim were doing lots of Aveiros Lishma. For example, pushing off davening. Davening late in the afternoon. There's something negative, but it's worth it. The mitzvah is, they would quote Rabbeinu Tam, the mitzvah is greater than Aveira. It's an Aveira Lishma. And all these types of things. And Reb Chaim Volozhner, a few times in his Sefer, he quotes that God forbid, and it doesn't mean that. And similar to the Ramchal, he says no one has the right to use this these days. It was said in the times of the Gemara, and that's it. It can be said by a prophet, or like Yael, who was saving the entire world, or like Esther, when she was with Achashverosh, but it cannot be used past then. On the other hand, you see that the story of the Shavuos Yankiv, the story of the Chassam Sofer, sometimes...
So this is also like this. How can you say it's something Shalosh Klubas Hashmeis? How can you turn into Klubas Nega?
If you have the tire, yeah.
You can't eat... A horse gets its chayas from Gimel Klippas Hatmeis. You can't eat it, but you could ride a horse to do a mitzvah. And you mavara something, it's not so... There's a whole back and forth in Hatomim about that.
So you can use it.
The Alter Rebbe writes in Tanya that a treifa animal gets its chayes from Gimel Klippas Hatmeis, it can't be uplifted. Can't eat it, but if you ride a horse to do a mitzvah, aren't you uplifting the chayes of the horse?
Yeah.
But the chayes can't be uplifted. So how does that work?
I thought that's mainly about eating it, though.
No, but the Alter Rebbe says, and he brings from Chaim Vital, that the chayes of the goof, the whole goof, Elamai, it must be taka. There's different elements of the horse. Part of it comes from anyhow. But
pushed in that direction from
so let me just finish off this.
creating big.
Hold on.
Creating
I don't want to do this, but
Got him.
We had a shiur a year ago. Oh, by now it's more than that. By Purim, all about how Esther was able to go into Achashverosh on that night. She went in willingly, doing Gili Arayas.
The first time that you went willingly.
No, yeah, she only went once willingly. Otherwise, she was forced. But the one time when she went willingly, she was doing Gili Arayas with a goy to save Klal Yisrael. And we said how Taka, there was a well-known story 300 years ago, that there were a group of people taken captive by pirates, and all of these Jews, their lives were in danger. A Jewish woman, a married woman amongst them, realized that if she seduces the chief captain, she can save them. And she did. And the question was, A, was she allowed to do that? B, is she allowed to go back to her husband, or has she become contaminated? And there were three opinions. There was the Beis Yaakov, the Shavus Yaakov, and the Noida B'Yehuda. The Beis Yaakov said what she did was good, and perhaps she can go back to her husband. She was considered forced, even though it was her idea to do it. The Shavus Yaakov says no. Since she wasn't directly forced into it, it was her idea, so then she's forbidden to her husband, but she was allowed to do what she did. Aveira Lishma. The Noida B'Yehuda says, what? Aveira Lishma is when you're saving all the Jews in 127 countries, like Esther or like Yael. But Esther also was a prophetess. You don't know what God told her. In fact, Mordechai told her to do it. He was a prophet. But the Noida B'Yehuda says you can't, unless you're saving in Gant and Klal Yisrael, you can't.
Where does he get that from?
What's the difference between Klal Yisrael and not Klal Yisrael?
Koch Nefesh?
There's always
What's the difference?
no.
Like by Har Sinai.
No.
Hashem
What's
said,
Because you can't do avodah zarah, let's say, to save yourself.
No, but it's-
Hold on, let me just, you can't do avodah zarah to save yourself. Could you do avodah zarah to save another person? No. But for Klal Yisrael, you can.
it's considered as Klal Yisrael. Like by Har Sinai, Pen Yifreit's bomb, even
That's
one
the-
person is considered the whole.
As if, but not mamish.
Interesting.
What's the parameter?
Bechlal, not just that.
Ten people?
Ich teine, who's ich? But I have rayas that even murder.
You never heard of the Ich?
You can't kill someone to save yourself. You can't kill someone to save another guy either. But you could kill someone to save Klal Yisrael.
What's the parameter?
Is
Where's
it-
the
but-
change?
What's the parameter? What?
10 people? A million
No,
people?
what's
How many
Klal
people?
Yisrael?
So if there's one guy in Texas that's not going to get help from this, you can't do it anymore? Let the all million
That's
other
the
people
big
die?
shah they all have in the Noida B'Yehuda. How many people do you need? How many people do you need?
Where did it say? Where did it say to the Gemara?
That what? Aveira Lishma?
The Klal Yisrael.
Well, the Gemara never says you're allowed to do this b'chlal. It's all a discussion of the poskim. Tosfos says that the word of Esther and Yael was Aveira Lishma. So people tiny, you see, you can do this to save people's lives. Well, maybe it's only
How's
like
that-
those stories to
how's
save
the
Klal
elf for Klal
Yisrael. All the Jews lived in Eretz
Sister,
Yisrael
yes,
then.
they were sisters
They're
horrible.
about to get killed.
They were all under attack from Sisera. Every Jew's life was in
This is a
danger.
private cruise. It's not
Yeah,
Israel.
yeah, exactly.
Let them die.
Neither you. That's pretty harsh.
Cruise. Come 100 people.
Anyhow,
You know when they say you can do anything you set your mind to? Not mamish.
okay, but I want to finish up.
What happened there?
What happened there?
Who argued
Oh,
with
what
the
happened?
Yehuda?
What-
We know what happened.
No, what
the woman
happened
did
with
what
the-
she did, and they,
With the argument.
the people
No,
lived
the
on. That's what
Yehuda.
happened. What happened was the people
Did
lived
she
on,
go
and they
back to her
had.
husband?
No, what happened to Night the Yehuda in his argument? Did people criticize it? Did it?
What's happening right here?
Yeah, but
You want to know what the public opinion was?
are we in
Play some
good?
argument.
Are we in good space?
Did he get a lot of likes?
Well, people quote the Ramchal who says that Aveira Lishma can never be taken out of context, can never be applied lemaisa. To say according to Ramchal, even to save Klal Yisrael, you can't.
Okay, so we know where the Ramchal is.
No, so in other words, so there's room for that.
Volozhin also is-
Chaim Volozhin also said that there's room for that. There's so I just want to tell you three. Okay. One thing. Look at number 13. Number 13 is a Beis Yosef from the laws of brachas. Ha'oichel dover is if you eat something which is forbidden, b'makom sakana, in the place of danger. In other words, b'chlal, if someone eats something which is treif, do you make a bracha? A well-known debate. The Rambam says no. The Rambam says no. Stam eating treif? No. And the Ravid famously says, you're eating treif, you shouldn't make a bracha. The Ravid says, if someone eats one piece of garlic, they should just eat another piece of garlic. You're doing one sin eating the treif. At least make a bracha. At least make a bracha.
Wow.
And the Rambam says no bracha. However, if someone's life is in danger, then the Rambam agrees you make a bracha. But says the Beis Yosef, "Ha'oichel dvar isur b'makom sakana," if someone eats something forbidden in the time of danger, Rabbeinu Yerucham brings from the Rameh, Rab Meir Halevi, Abelifia, the Rav in Toledo, in the 1200s, you don't bench on it, even if your life's in danger. Says Rab Yosef Kadav, a lean nearer that the Rambam agrees that if your life's in danger, you do make a bracha. So there's three opinions. The Ravid holds always you do. The Rambam says only if your life's in danger.
Ramban?
Ben Yerucham says
Rambam.
Rambam, I don't remember saying.
Rabbeinu Yerucham, yeah, in Hilchos Brachos. And the Rabbeinu Yerucham brings from the Rameh, you shouldn't make a bracha even if your life's in danger. And the shaila is why. If your life's in danger, your mamash allowed to eat it. It's mamash, doesn't it become completely mutter? So, some taina, there's a whole Rogachover about this, that even if you're allowed to eat it, but to you it's you're eating pork, you're disgusted by it. So you don't have any enjoyment.
You can't make it raw.
You don't have any enjoyment. But another explanation is that when your life's in danger, the food remains treifa food. The essence of the food doesn't change. There's a lot to talk about this, but we're going to keep it. The essence of the food doesn't change. It's still treif. But the mitzvah of saving your life is more important than the issue of eating the treif. The mitzvah is gedolim and aveira. But what you're doing, you should do it. But you should know you're eating treif. You can't make a bracha. That's the pshat of Rabbeinu Yerucham according to the Rameh. That either you learn like the Rogachover that you're just disgusted by it, or you learn that this item remains treif. Your life is more important, so eat it. But you should know you're eating treif. In fact, the Shach famously says, if a woman while she was pregnant had to eat treif, even though it was dangerous, so she needed to eat the treif, she shouldn't nurse her kids. Famous Shach. Because it's going to have a negative impact on the kid. The mother was allowed to eat it, her life was in danger.
Temporarily until the food gets out of her system? Or?
It's always in her system.
Wow.
And any other kids still?
Yeah, what
So
about
the
other kids later on?
We probably won't go like this Shach, but the Shach says this. The Shach says that even though her life was in danger, but the food remains treif and it has a negative impact. That's only so. There's a famous Rosh. Only by actions we say that, but to transform the item of food can't be transformed. Only an action. The Rosh says someone's dying on Shabbos. You have a choice. You could either shecht for them, a kosher animal, or you can give them. There's already chazer here.
Right.
So shechting is breaking Shabbos. It's skila. Maybe just give them the chazer. So the Rosh says that better shecht. And what's his reason? He says if you give them chazer, they're eating chazer. It's just since their life's in danger, they're justified in doing it, but they're eating chazer. But when it comes to the action of shechting on Shabbos, which is a prohibited action, if someone's life is in danger, the action becomes mutter.
Yeah.
An action can be transformed,
right.
not an item.
Right.
That's what the Rosh says. Anyhow, so Al Kopanim, he says, Mamid, but Barbeinu Yerucham and the Ramed, I think it's a very similar idea, that when you eat the treif, you're eating treif, but it's worth it. It's worth it. A similar thing is, Goy says, eat treif or I'll kill you. Are you allowed to take the bullet? The Rambam holds, no, the Rambam holds you have to eat the treif. If you take the bullet, it's suicide. Tosfos, the Ashkenazic Rishonim generally were more makel. You can give up your life if you want. So everybody you have a choice. You have a choice. So the question is, what's the debate? So people want to kind of that the Rambam disagreed with this whole approach for Rabbeinu Tam. The Rambam, as a philosopher, believes the Eibishter's will is it's either good or it's no good, and you can never have this gray level. And therefore, if the Eibishter says you can eat the treif, according to the Rambam, the Rambam will hold you make a bracha. The Rambam holds if Hashem says you're allowed to eat the treif, there's nothing wrong with eating it. Right. So how could you take the bullet? It's damn suicide. But the other Ashkenazic Rishonim, it's Tosfos and Avodah Zarah, will hold like Rabbeinu Tam that no. And maybe Rameh, Rabbeinu Yerucham, that the food is treif. Your life supersedes. But since there's an Aveira happening, if you want to give up your life, it's not stam suicide, you're accomplishing something. According to the Rambam, you're not accomplishing anything. According to the Rambam, it's mutter. Like, why dying is stam suicide? So you see, it mamish fits in very well over there. The last thing is look at number 12. And we'll finish with this. Number 12, this is a kasha that Tosfos asks many places in Shas. A very simple, famous question. That we saw that a person should always do something shaloi lishma, because mitoich shaloi lishma, you'll come to lishma. Frek Tosfos v'im toimer, the Gemara says in Brachas, if someone does a mitzvah shaloi lishma, better he was never created. Better he was never noyach loy shaloi nivra. So Frek Tosfos, wait a second. On the one hand, we say if you learn Torah shaloi lishma, it's pashut horrible. Better you weren't born. And here in number 11, Taisus in 12 is going on the Gemara in 11. Rav says, no, go do it, because that's the way you'll get to Lishma. So Taisus answers simply, it depends. V'yesh leimar, hasam mayri sha'oisik b'teira shaloi Lishma l'kapeach acher. If someone learns just to, to outsmart people, to just in order to prove somebody wrong, exactly. But if someone's learning shaloi Lishma to become as a famous scholar, to puff up their ego, that's not as bad. If someone's learning for honor or for riches, start that way and hopefully you'll graduate. But if someone's mamash learning to hurt people, instigate machloikas, they're just learning in order to prove
to make others feel bad.
Exactly, or to prove a machloikas and like many people, then better they weren't created. That's what Tosfos says. I once found a letter of the Alter Rebbe. It's in the Sefer Meir Sha'arim, where the Alter Rebbe argues on Tosfos, and he says that he thinks there's no question in the first place. All Shaloi Lishmos are the same, he says. And tak, if you do it, it's better you weren't created. But you should still do it, because that's the path to one day get to Lishma. While you're doing it, it's horrible. Right. But one day you'll get to Lishma.
The reward.
Right, so that's how the Alter Rebbe says B'chlal no contradiction. When Rav says you should do it, while you're doing it, you're going to get patched. But one day you'll get to Lishma and you'll fix everything up. Hold on. So then I saw one Rishon, Reb Chaim Or Zarua, the Marach Or Zarua. He was in the 1200s, end of the 1200s. And he says like this. How does the Gemara say, number 11, that an Aveira for the right reasons, like the mitzvah for the wrong reason, he learns just like the Alter Rebbe says. He doesn't like Tosfos. He says all Shaloi Lishmas are the same. He says when someone is learning Shaloi Lishma, it's better you weren't created. In other words, it's an Aveira, it's horrible. But it's going to get you to a good place. It's just like an Aveira Lishma. You're doing something wrong, but for the right reason.
That's what the Gemara says also.
Here with the Marach Hazur is saying, if someone learns for the wrong reason, it's exactly the same as doing the wrong thing for the right reason. Because when you learn for the wrong reason, you're supposed to do it. What you're doing is wrong, but look where it's going to get you. It's just like every time you do an Aveira Lishma, you're doing an Aveira, but the purpose of it, where it's going to get me, what's the expression? The end justifies the means. By both cases, the end, just like by every Aveira Lishma, the end justifies the means. So too, when you learn Torah Shaloi Lishma, right now you're going to get clapped. But where it's going to take you,
you still need a fast.
It's going to justify the means.
You still need a fast later on, but you should still do it.
Right. Anyhow, so according to the Marach Or Zarua, whenever somebody learns Shaloi Lishma, they're taking advantage of this din of Aveira Lishma, because the two ideas are equal. Fascinating. Okay, we'll end over here, but just...